Sometimes my mom would get this burst of energy and she would make Gia, a crispy fried spring roll from South Vietnam, and it reminded her of home and it was delicious. It would be a part of celebrations like for my birthday or for New Year's. It was close to the end of the war, and my father was a translator for the Pentagon, and luckily there was a plan to evacuate my father and our family before all hell broke loose. We considered ourselves the lucky ones. And we were lucky. Our family was one of two families of Vietnamese refugees that settled in the United States in Salt Lake City, Utah. So life at home was tumultuous. I understood that as, hey, my parents were trying to rebuild their life. They had lost everything, and that's a lot to come back from. For the most part, my dad he put on a really good face. He was very optimistic. He never talked about doubts. He really felt like he was gonna rebuild it. There were times where for sure you could see the heartache that he had at how much was lost. He really had in his mind this mission that he would grow his wealth in America and be a millionaire someday. Like that was something that he really dreamed of. For my mom, life was a lot tougher because she didn't speak English coming over to the United States. My father was an English teacher, so he was a fluent English speaker. He barely had an accent. And for my mom, English was tough. She had to go to school to learn English while she was raising two little kids. And for my mother, coming to Utah meant experiencing our first winter, a place full of white faces, white snow, and being chilled to the bone. In Vietnamese culture, white is the color of a funeral, the color of loss. And for my mother, it was taboo. She would get really deeply sad and angry, and she would disappear into her room and not come out for days. And growing up, we always assigned it to sort of the PTSD and post-traumatic stress of being a refugee and surviving the war and escaping and leaving her entire family behind. But it created a lot of turmoil because my mom was so sick and so depressed and had such deep paranoia about communists and people coming over from Vietnam, that they were out to get her, or that they would be jealous that we had made it to America before the other people, that they would try to harm us or our family. It wasn't until I was in medical school, actually, that I finally understood what my mother was really dealing with. My mother was hospitalized and she was diagnosed with bipolar. And one of the features of bipolar disease can be severe paranoia. For my family, the war didn't end until my mother's death. By then we had been exiled for more than 36 years, and for the longest time my parents vowed that they would never go back. Partly out of fear, maybe dread, definitely sadness. And then I decided when I met my wife that I was going to go back. and see what it was like for myself to experience the things I'd only heard about in stories from my mom and my dad. I wanted to see Saigon before it had changed too much and loses the spirit it had before we left. And it was amazing. There's an energy and a vitality, and there's definitely some heartbreak there. My mother never returned. You know, it was part paranoia and part fear that kept her away. She was so overwhelmed by fear when I decided to go back to Vietnam. She thought that I would be kidnapped and held captive because we weren't communists and because we were Americans. And for her, that fear was real. She was really overwhelmed by that terrible anxiety. As much as I thought it would be good for her to return, she just couldn't bring herself to do it. It was only after she died we brought her ashes back to Saigon. Eventually, my father overcame his fears, and he returned and decided to retire in Vietnam. He eventually remarried, and he plans to spend the rest of his life there. So for him, he's got some closure about the war and the loss, and I'm happy for him. My kids don't have all that heavy history of a war and losing family and death and being a refugee. They just have honest and genuine curiosity about Vietnam and where I'm from and where they're from ultimately. For my son and daughter, Cha Gio is one of their favorite foods, and it's something I love to share with them. It just brings me so much joy to see them crunching into a crispy Cha Gio that I made that was handed down to me from my mother. That's a moment I'm sharing with my mother, and I wonder if when she used to make Cha Gio for me, if she got that same feeling. It's an act of love. I think that's a blessing. That's the blessing of having kids and the next generation. They can move forward and carry with them the genuine happy parts and appreciation without picking a side, the politics, and all the destructive things that come with war.